Welcome to Statesboro, Georgia for Sun Belt Conference men's basketball on ESPN. It's the regular season finale in an in-state rivalry. Georgia Southern welcomes in Georgia State on the Eagles' senior night. Final game of the year, huge Sun Belt Conference tournament seeding on the line. Georgia Southern wants to stay out of playing in the first round of the tournament on Tuesday in Pensacola. Georgia State trying to work their way up the standings as well to have more buys in the tournament. Welcome inside the Hill. He's Joshua Ryans. I'm Danny Wall. Michelle Kamani on sideline. Final game of the regular season, senior night for Georgia Southern against her in-state rival. Josh, what's the biggest factor here for the Eagles tonight?
Biggest factor is going to come down to maintaining your composure. You look at a rivalry game, especially with postseason implications in that conference championship, you've got to make sure you maintain your composure because you know it's going to be a physical game. A lot of fouls will be involved in this game, so you got to make sure you're knocking down those free throws as well.
Well, the Eagles were able to maintain composure back from their win on Tuesday night against another rival in App State, 61-59, the first win for Charlie Henry against the Mountaineers, while Georgia State wants to bounce back after a loss to Coastal Carolina on Wednesday night.
And this really just adds to the atmosphere today. Georgia Southern eking out a very close win against another rival, and then Georgia State coming in off a loss to face their own rival in Georgia Southern. It's going to be a great game.
Our own Michelle Kamani has more on this rivalry game tonight.
Yeah, Danny, this is going to be an emotional game, but a very intense game for both of these teams. This is going to be their 7th meeting for both of these teams, but the Eagles did lose in Atlanta in overtime, and now they're here at the Hill for redemption. For the Panthers, their head coach, Jonas Hayes, he stated that when Georgia Southern and when Georgia State play, it's like both of these teams are 30-0. That's how intense the game is, and that's what you call rivalry. So, guys, it's round 2. Who's it going to be, Georgia State or Georgia Southern?
Thanks, Michelle. Southern versus State, State versus Southern, however you want to say it. It is always an intense matchup. You look at head coach Charlie Henry for the Eagles wrapping up year 2. Jonas Hayes for Georgia State wrapping up season 3. And Coach Hayes also mentioned on the loss against Coastal, he's not looking back. That game has no bearings on what they're... Statesboro, Georgia for Sun Belt Conference football on ESPN. It is a beautiful Saturday evening in perfect football weather as Georgia Southern welcomes in the Maine Black Bears in their final non-conference game of the season. Last week, Georgia Southern got their first win of the year, a thriller against the defending Conference USA champions in Jack State, while Maine still looking for their first win after a heartbreaker in their home opener against Stonehill. Welcome to Paulson Stadium. He's Jason Foster, Sky Taylor on sideline. I'm Danny Wall. Now that the Eagles have gotten their first win of the year, Jason, how do they keep that momentum going against Maine tonight?
Yeah, for the Eagles, it's pretty simple. It all begins with defense. They have to stay attacking the football, going fast, make sure they get the ball on the ground, and then also leverage the football and give their offense short fields to get touchdowns.
It was the defense that really held things down for the Eagles in the fourth quarter. Defensive coordinator Brandon Bailey talked about how they want to keep that together for a full 4 quarters. They're facing a Maine team that even though they're 0-3 on the year, they do great in limiting offenses from scoring, just averaging 280 yards total on the year. For more on this game tonight, we send it down to our own Sky Taylor with more.
Georgia Southern has the power of Paulson advantage where they normally dominate their opponents, but tonight all eyes are going to be on the running backs. Georgia Southern's O.J. Arnold found the end zone twice last weekend against Jacksonville State, while Maine's Sincere Baines is nearly running 8 yards a carry, almost moving the chains by himself every time that he touches the football. So the question, who will control the backfield tonight? Only time can tell.
You look at these running backs, thank you, Sky. Jason, what's the biggest thing that stands out about the two?
If you watch both running backs, Baines and Arnold, they're both very patient, and also when they put their foot in the ground, they have the explosive ability to go all the way to the end zone. And you come back with Arnold, he does the same thing. He's very patient, quick foot.
We got ourselves an in-state showdown in Sun Belt Conference play between Georgia Southern and Georgia State coming up next.
We are the real GSU.
It's one of them old school, like late night football games.
To describe this rivalry, I say mangy. Because it's home ground, the in-state rivalry.
On the first ever Georgia Growing Bowl, it goes the way of Georgia Southern.
They're going to punch us in the mouth, we're going to punch them in the mouth, and it's just an all-out brawl.
44 breaks 2 more, still going Josh Dallas, are you serious?
Kyler Neal gonna put this one out of reach. Maybe the biggest win in program history.
Well, we in the same state, one, and as I said, we got to find out who the real GSU is.
Welcome to Statesboro for Sun Belt Conference football on ESPN. It is a beautiful Saturday night. Homecoming for Georgia Southern, a whiteout, and the second annual Georgia Growing Bowl between the Eagles and the Georgia State Panthers. Welcome to Paulson Stadium. He's Jason Foster, Whitney Hayworth on sideline. I'm Danny Wall. Both the Eagles and the Panthers have yet to win a game in Sun Belt Conference play, but as the second half of the season kicks off, head coach Del McGee for the Panthers and Clay Helton for Georgia Southern wants to see their team play a full 4 quarters of football to get a win tonight.
Yeah, I think both teams have had slow starts. In the end of the game, they could finish well, but both coaches are looking for these guys to grind it out and start fast and start early to try to steal a victory in the Southern Conference, Sun Belt Conference.
You will see playmakers get involved, and the playmakers come from the wide receiving corps. For Georgia State, it's Ted Hurst, and for Georgia Southern, it's Camden Brown.
Yeah, these guys right here are dynamic receivers. When the ball's in the air, they're going to make a play on it. They present a real challenge to the DBs, so they're going to have to be on their game tonight.
For more on this in-state rivalry, we send it down to our own Whitney Hayworth with more.
You speak about the offensive weapons, but equally important are the defenses that they will face. Georgia Southern announcing earlier this week that Chance Gamble will be out with the remainder of the season due to a torn labrum. He had surgery on Thursday. For Georgia State, 2 defensive backs to keep an eye on that truly don't get the recognition they deserve, Demarion Fillmore and Bernard Causey. These matchups will be equally important, and for Georgia Southern in particular, who will stand up and be the next man up for the Eagles in Chance Gamble's absence.
Thanks, Whitney. A lot of injuries for both teams, so it is a next man up mentality. This is the 12th all-time meeting between the Eagles and Panthers. Georgia State has a slight 1-game edge, but the Eagles have won the last 2 years, especially last season, being the inaugural Georgia Growing Bowl matchup.
Yeah, anytime you're playing for a cup or the in-state rivalry, you guys want to win this game. So this one's going to be a big one, not only for bragging rights, but for conference standings.
Georgia State won the toss, and it is a homecoming for Del McGee, was the interim head coach for Georgia Southern in 2015, also was the running backs coach for 2 years. Powering his way through McMullen, but Tyson Brown, what defense as it leads to our first media timeout of the night. It's raining threes in the hill. All of the Panthers' made buckets have come from long distance.
Absolutely. You get a look at Jelani Hamilton early on, and then Lane with 2 threes back to back. And you look at that one with the hand in his face, just went nothing but net.
Georgia Southern football still on the West Coast. They take on Southern Cal tonight, but will have their home opener from the prettiest little stadium in America, Paulson Stadium, next Saturday, 7 p.m. on ESPN+, taking on the defending Conference USA champions in the Jack State Gamecocks. Welcome back inside Inner Fieldhouse. Georgia Southern up 2-0 over the Pacific Tigers. Danny Wall and Cody Tran on hand. That second set was probably just the most gritty set we have seen so far in the match. It was also some gritty defensive play in set 1. But how did you see Georgia Southern really fight from behind and take the lead up 2-0?
It was timely plays by their star player, Reagan Barth, as well as the company of her team, from Lydia Seymour to Sam Bowron to a little bit of Maggie Sale and the misdirection of Barrett.
All about the rotation and different players able to get involved for the Eagles. Reagan Barth leading the way, followed by Lydia Seymour and Sam Bowron. Looking at the stats that stood out the most, I mean, we've talked how defense have driven this match, both in the 40s, averaging over 20 digs a set, but we've also seen some errors on the attacking side with both teams hitting below 200.
Yeah, both these teams got to make sure they clean up on their miscues, and then with the defense, it's giving them chances to have rallies and continuing point plays for both these teams.
This is a unique preseason test, non-conference test for Georgia Southern as for the first time in program history, picked to win the Sun Belt East. And matches like the one we are seeing tonight, Cody, is going to get them battle-tested once they get in the conference play.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you get your kinks and everything figured out, but you want to make sure that you're also playing your brand of volleyball. Look at Georgia Southern here. They're going to be a gauntlet for the Sun Belt Conference.
Look at James Madison, Coastal Carolina. Can't forget about Arkansas State and Texas State in the West. But Pacific out of the West Coast Conference picked to finish 7th, and some new faces with the dissolvement of the Pac-12. It is coming back in 2026, but you got Oregon State and Washington State in there. But you can't forget about San Diego. They are a favorite year in and year out, not just in the regular season, but also when it comes to postseason play.
And then looking more towards Pacific, we always seen them being coached by Greg Gibbons as a competitive team. Look at this game just in general. The Tigers have been head-to-head with the Eagles through these first 2 sets. We'll see it again in this third one probably.
Got to give credit to the Tigers. Basically Well, Jason, the worst loss in Paulson Stadium was not your guess. 2006 when you played against Wofford. It was actually 2015, almost 10 years ago. It was in December where Georgia State beat the Eagles 34-7, 27-point loss. And that was when Dale McGee was the running backs coach for the Eagles.
Yeah, that's definitely a surprising stat. I would not have guessed Georgia State. And luckily I'm not part of that trivia question like this.
Panthers first ball. Eagles back up 10-7 on ESPN Plus following a touchdown pass from J.C. French to Camden Brown for his 7th touchdown on the year. Going back to Panthers head coach Dale McGee, we were talking about how Coach McGee was the interim head coach in the Eagles' first ever bowl game and bowl win over Bowling Green. But he started as the running backs coach under Willie Fritz for 2 years. We'll see what his Panthers will do as they go back on offense.
Yeah, Coach McGee does a great job of running backs. Now he needs these running backs to step up here and keep this game close and hold serve for Georgia Southern to score on offense.
Ball will bounce into the end zone. Panthers will take it to the 25. And for Coach McGee, the first 2 seasons in FBS football for Georgia Southern as the running backs coach. Also won a Sun Belt championship in 2014 with the Eagles. But then when Willie Fritz retired by Tulane, McGee named the interim head coach and led this Eagles team to their first bowl win. Then he goes to Georgia, winning a pair of national championships under Kirby Smart and coaching numerous talented running backs, and now getting his shot as a head coach for Georgia State and Atlanta.
Yeah, the record right now doesn't reflect his coaching talent, but I'm sure he'll get it turned around, making these good hires, and also bringing in plenty of talent in the football.
Look at Clay Helton back in 1992 alongside Dale McGee. These 2 coaches were former teammates with Auburn back in the early 90s under legendary head coach Pat Dye.
Yeah, with them being on the same team, they have some of the similar characteristics of both how they spoke of how they want practice to be tough. And even with Georgia Southern this week, practicing, tackling live in practice.
And Coach Helton has to be happy as J.C. French, a 4-yard touchdown to give the Eagles the lead 20-17. You know, Coach McGee was telling us about some of those practices back in the day under Coach Dye. I've never heard about 3-a-day practices.
Yeah, I think we both kind of got a laugh out of that one. I've heard of 2-a-day, but he mentioned they had a full pad 3-a-day practice, which kind of speaks to the toughness of both of these coaches.
Talk about having to practice at 6 a.m., full pads, and back again at 1 p.m., then 6 p.m. again. And it was full contact, all tackling. I mean, I know, Jason, you've done 2-a-days, but would you ever try a 3-a-day practice as a player?
I couldn't imagine. 2-a-days was hot enough down here in Statesboro. Also being in Auburn for a 3-day practice, that's got to be critical.
Top of the A, Georgia Southern leading 6-0, and Kate Grundy still on the mound pitching here in the 8th inning. And this is where Georgia Southern has had some troubles in their 3-game losing stretch. Here you see the last 3 games where Georgia Southern was outscored a combined 15-0 in the final 2 innings.
And that really is just inexcusable right there if you look at all of those results, and most recently the one last night where they had the chance to bring it home, but again just could not close out the game.
Yeah, last night leading 4-2 following J.P. Herhol's go-ahead 2-run homer. Bases were loaded. Ashton Quiller, a bases clearing triple to give the Red Wolves the lead. A French single.
Anytime he's one-on-one, you got to think the ball's going to go out there, especially as they get near the red zone with his size and his jumping ability.
Coach Helen had high praise for the senior Brown and just his playmaking ability. It was only a matter of time before French was able to find Brown, went to his other receivers first, and then when it mattered the most in the red zone, 20-yard passing touchdown for French's 10th passing touchdown this year. Drip Bryant nails it down the middle on the PAT, making it 10-7 Eagles.
High snap, way for French to handle snap, but look at the trajectory on this ball, basically dropping it in the bucket. Couldn't make a better throw than that. Yeah, Camden Brown goes up and makes a contested catch. Yeah, pretty sticky coverage right there as well, but Cam's such a talent. Anytime you get it, you got to go to him.